Sony says it will still make physical video game discs for its PlayStation after 2028, but only as long as the game comes out before then. Anything released after 2028 will be digital only. Sony has said it's discontinuing physical discs, and that is generating a negative response from the gaming community. The company has reportedly invested millions of dollars in repurposing its game factory in Austria to make other products. So what does this tell us about analog versus digital media debate that is constantly ongoing? To find out more, we're joined now by Niko Stratis. She's a Toronto-based writer and pop culture critic. Niko, thanks so much for making time for us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Niko, I gotta tell you this, we talked about so many stories in the meeting today. Nothing got people chatting like this particular one, including in the commercial right up to talking to you. My colleague Jan, our floor director, said, "This is terrible. I can't believe Sony's doing this." Why are so many people so upset about this?
I mean, it speaks to a broader issue of we kind of no longer own anything. There's no object permanence in the world anymore. You know, every service we have is a subscription. There's no, physical media is rapidly being torn away from us. If we buy something digitally, whether or not we really own it is a really nebulous feeling. So it is like another sort of nail in the coffin of, well, what do we actually own? What are we pouring all our money into? We're putting all our money into, all these subscriptions and buying things digitally and whatever, but are we just throwing our money into a pit and hoping that eventually we get to keep the pit when it's all done? And it's sort of, it's a challenging question because we don't really know at the end of the day of, well, what do I actually have?
Well, Sony says that they're doing this because this is what the consumer wants, and this is part of a bigger, broader trend with, as you said, all things becoming less physical and more digital. Is that true? Is that what people want?
I tell you, Capital really loves to say what the consumer wants without ever really talking to the consumer, right? Because you do, whenever something like this happens, and especially this, with the PlayStation one, it's really interesting to see this big reaction to it because I think it just speaks to a broader issue of we are seeing a lot of people talking about this. I've read a lot of stories about, younger generations are seeking out physical media and analog things, and an older generation is, wanting to hold on to the physical media of the past and to feel like they're still able to buy a physical thing because this is how we grew up and this is what we're used to. And so, when companies like Sony or whomever say, well, this is what the consumer wants, it might be what the consumer's buying because it's the easiest and best option, but it's not necessarily what they want. It's just all they're getting.
So a lot of people, as I said, are expressing their anger against Sony for this, but does that make any real difference? I mean, will Sony adapt accordingly, or do we all just in the end up submitting and doing what these big corporations want us to do?
I mean, I want to say that, with a big enough public outcry that Sony's going to reverse course, that means that Sony's a different corporation. I don't think they're going to hear people saying, we really want to keep buying, video games on CDs. And this isn't even narrowed down to just video games. There was an issue with people buying, movies that Sony has released through their production, through their, their movie line on, the PlayStation or whatever, through a digital service. And suddenly when Sony no longer had the rights to them, all these movies that they had purchased were taken away from their library. So, I would hope that with a big enough public outcry, Sony would say, you know what, we're going to rethink this decision because people don't like this. But in the last few years, especially, I don't think we've seen large corporations like this be really at the whim of the consumer. They're kind of just doing whatever works best for the bottom line of their, their brass, their CEO, whomever, their stakeholders. They're not really concerned about what the consumer wants, no matter how loud they might be.
Niko, part of the reason this topic got so much discussion in our newsroom is because so many of us responded with, look, my social media feed is telling me that everyone is rejecting the digital world, that they want to return to a more analog experience in all matters of life. They want to read an actual book. They want to knit something. They want to sew something. They want to craft. They want hobbies again. They just don't want to doom scroll all day. And then the conversation became, well, is that reality, or is that again what a major conglomerate like Meta wants us to believe on their platform?
I think the proof of the pudding is in the taste a little bit with that, because I know enough people in the world that are engaging more with analog technology, which is, like I'm of the right vintage. I'm in my 40s, so like all the stuff that people are taking on as vintage stuff now is just the technology that I grew up with. But I will say that I am seeing it in the world more and more, and I think that's an important part of it too. It sort of speaks to this digital versus analog debate of, like you said, is this just a thing that we're seeing influencers on Meta posting about, or TikTok or what have you, or are people in the real world doing it? And I think people in the real world are doing it because we are seeing the market adapt to it. In terms of music, we're seeing companies start to make Walkman again. People are making affordable MP3 players again. People are making things so people can buy something and own it. And I think that speaks to a consumer desire and a user desire, and the desire of people to say, I want to go out and pay for something with my money and walk away with it. I don't want to subscribe to it until I'm dead. And so, like, I do think that more and more people are seeing the state of the world, the digital world, the analog world, AI, like AI being shoehorned into everything, and saying, I want to have something that I can put my hands on and hold and know it's real. I want some object permanence for my life.
I love this phrase, object permanence. It's new to me. I'm going to definitely adopt it. Niko, and I thank you for that. I wonder, just from your own perspective, I too am of that vintage, and I have taken up embroidery at this stage in life, which I used to do as a kid. My mom would buy us embroidery kits, and I'm like, this is delightful. Why aren't more people doing this? So do you think that this is just a trend of this moment, or are we really going to have some sort of a revolution in terms of returning to craftsmanship in our day-to-day lives?
I don't know if we're going to see a revolution on a large scale. When you say revolution, it sort of conjures these images of a large scale reaction. And I don't know if that's ever going to be true, but I kind of would prefer it doesn't. I would love it to be small pockets of people that are getting back into an analog lifestyle. And some people are in different ways. And, like, I think we've become too siloed into this idea of like, well, all of culture is going in one direction. And I think it might be better for us if a small handful goes in one direction and some go in another and some do part way. And I do think we are seeing it more and more. And I think this reaction to it is growing. I think we will see more people, doing needlepoint, or, journaling is getting really big. And these are all physical things. And, I think it's only going to grow from here. And it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts. And especially, the AI bubble and everything, seeing, well, like they're putting AI in everything and people are buying more notebooks. So what does that say? So, like I am curious to see where it goes. I don't know if we're going to get a large scale revolution, but I'm not sure that really matters. I think revolution is more, best used in other places.
Before I let you go, is that a set of tapes behind you?
It sure is. We have a lot of tapes in our house. My partner has a lot of some of the mixtapes she made when she was a teenager in high school, and I have some of mine. And we have a lot of records and books, and we are hoarders of analog physical media in our house, and it's comforting.
And I still listen to CDs. So you know what, Niko Stratis, so glad you joined us today. It's been really fun chatting with you. Thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having me.
Our pleasure.